Hello and welcome to Athletics Check. I'm Anthony Denu, along with Michael Feuerbach and Tyler Lambert. How we doing, fellas?
Hello.
I'm doing well. Happy to be here and talk
Happy to.
about sports and D&D.
That's right. So I started the show off because we're already kind of mixing it into our show with the D&D because how we decided on who was going to open the show was our little friends right
We
here.
let
A little
the math,
D12s.
That's
the
right.
math rocks.
I
Our
rolled a
D12,
3.
which I am learning a D12 now for our audio viewers, listeners. Is a part of the game. I know what that is now. I know that there's more than that. This is my base knowledge, basically, of what you guys gave me last time of the die numbers when it started.
Something. Yeah.
Well, yeah,
He's learning. He's learning.
Yeah.
He's part of the gang.
That's right.
It's only fair that we roll for it. There's no better determination.
That's right.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you're rolling. You'll be rolling every week with us.
That's right.
Yeah. Let
Rolling with
fate
the big
decide.
dogs.
Yeah,
That's right.
I'm a large dog. Yeah.
I got a full set here I want to show you guys. I know all the people listening in can't see it, but I got a whole metallic dice set.
Yeah.
They were at Rainy Day Games here in Hillsboro off TV Highway, and they go for $40. I went ahead and peeled off the tag here, and I bought these for $40.
Holy
flex.
cow!
And thank goodness I had some points at Rainy Day, and they were able to cut the price in half, so they were only about $20. So I feel
Whoa,
fantastic.
that's a big deal.
I got some really nice metallic dice for a bargain. Thank you, Rainy Day
What a
Games.
deal.
So a game
we're
store
starting with plugs.
a game
Nice.
store like that, is that typically where you get whatever books and other things that you need for the game?
100%.
Typically, we want to support the local business. I think 100%.
Yeah.
And there's all kinds of places. I can name like 3 in Hillsboro that are close by, 10 minutes away, that have dice, have some books for sale, have like all those kind of little kits that you need to start D&D. And I want to see these places continue to stay open. So I'm absolutely going to buy $40 dice.
Yeah. It's definitely, dice are a really good thing to get to for people because you can never have enough dice, I find, because they come in all shapes and colors. Well, mostly the same shapes actually, but colors, and they have different like inclusions and stuff potentially, and it's nice to have a plethora to choose from. And it's nice that there's a lot of choice in game stores around us too, which is lucky. But they sell those things like starter sets and dice even in places like Barnes and Noble and like bookstores and stuff like that.
Powell's Books. I've seen in Portland. I've seen a bunch of all kinds of D&D stuff and Critical Role stuff, and Dimension 20 books that they've put out in the kind of nerdy fantasy section of Powell's Books downtown.
Yeah, you actually can be surprised with what you can actually find in that kind of stuff. The Powell's Books that is here in Beaverton actually has a lot of older edition stuff too, which is really cool to find.
Oh, that is cool.
That sometimes game stores have to stay up with the trends with gaming and have the newest stuff all the time, but some of the older bookstores can stock some vintage stuff, which is very cool to see.
Yeah, I feel like in a sports perspective there might be the same thing too, because I have this old New York Yankees kind of jersey shirt that says Mantle on the back, and Mickey Mantle was a very famous New York Yankees player. Before my time, I didn't really know anything about him, but then all these guys, when I was actually getting my COVID shot, one of my COVID boosters, a guy was like, "Hey, Mickey Mantle, I haven't seen that shirt in a while." Like, it's kind of that thing where it's like you see an old school D&D thing, it's like, "Oh, that's really cool." See the Mickey Mantle, oh, I know that reference, I know what you're talking about. There's lore behind it. There's a backstory there.
And it's great that you picked baseball there for that, because that, I feel like, is the sport, and it's not number one. It's it was talked about as America's pastime forever and ever, but I think that's the NFL is definitely, and football and basketball have kind of eclipsed baseball in many ways. But baseball does have, I think, the lore and the stories and the history, and the documentaries are better, the movies are better. I mean, all of it. So I think baseball, especially, like, there's such a tie to the earlier generations and things like that. So if I'm not mistaken,
a good radio sport. I feel
it's the best radio sport.
Yeah,
It's the
because
best
it's
radio
one
sport.
pitch at a time. You describe what happens in the pitch. You talk in between the pitches. Yeah, I absolutely would tune into a radio station to listen to some baseball and maybe watch the play-by-play on my phone. Don't need to actually be there at the show. Yeah, I've done that once or twice.
which is actually interesting, an interesting crossover, I think, with D&D live plays, where a
Mm,
lot of people can listen to those and not necessarily have to watch, but it's a different form of the art form that is playing D&D, if it
yeah.
isn't considered an art form. I mean, some people elevate it to that degree for sure, but
Yeah.
you
All right.
don't
Well,
necessarily have to be watching it.
how would someone make it an art form? Is someone who's a dungeon master in the best position to do that?
Yeah, I think it's master storytelling is what it is. It's part improvisation, like theater. It's part like with planning and like setting up your story, but it's also like, hey, I didn't know that guy was gonna roll a natural 20 and kill my boss super early. I gotta roll with that. I gotta
Yeah.
literally roll with that, but I've got to react and tell the story and weave this narrative. And I think when you do it right, it's absolutely amazing to watch.
Yeah. But it is a collaborative thing with the players as well. Like when there's it's about sort of chemistry sometimes. If you can have like a really good mix between like a DM that knows their players very well and a player that kind of vice versa knows their DM very well, and they can kind of play off of each other, that can also lead to some really good moments.
Yeah, I think kind of what you and I were talking about earlier, Michael. Earlier today, we were talking about GPT, and we were talking about AI. And I asked it, "Hey, what do sports and D&D have in common?" And kind of on that note that you're talking about, it says, they both have social interaction. Both D&D and sports can be social activities that bring people together. In D&D, players work together to achieve a common goal and often develop close friendships in the process. In sports, athletes work together to achieve victory, and fans come together to support their favorite teams.
Hmm.
I absolutely have fallen in love with this online AI thing, and I thought, how fun would it be to put in a prompt about our podcast to see what it has to say? And yeah, there's a lot in common there, but also just like with the art form that it is, and with the team camaraderie that comes with playing D&D, and like helping out your fellow man and giving them a healing potion, or like coming up with a clever play in football to trick the defense and get 10 more
Yeah.
yards.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That brings up two questions for me.
Sure.
One, when you guys are playing, are you playing with or against each other?
Ooh,
You
good
mean
question.
like DM versus players, or like DMs and players working together,
I'm looking for, I guess,
or
both.
players and players?
I guess both. Well, just about how Tyler talked about helping, using a potion or whatever to help another person or character. Like, how would that? Are you trying to just advance a story as a group? Are you looking to win? Does that differ on how you guys, who you're playing with and all of those
It's a
different possibilities?
it's a really good question, and I feel like there's a lot of ways to look at that. I mean, I think you shouldn't be, as a dungeon master, I feel like you shouldn't be like, you should be challenging your players, but you shouldn't necessarily be out to get them necessarily. But then
Yeah,
again, there are some really good examples where like the Tomb of Horrors, I feel like is a
it's just
dungeon
mean.
designed to get the players and destroy them.
Yeah,
But
it's
it kind of is not
well,
necessarily the most fun dungeon to go through for that reason too.
yeah, because it's so deadly and stuff, and designed specifically, and it's kind of giving the DM a little bit of a break of just saying like, hey, this is how it rolls, this is how it works. This one says it kills you if you wait here more than 15 minutes, and you guys did. You guys are
Yeah.
dead, and it kind of rides the line, I would say, Anthony, of like as a DM, you want to create it fun, exciting, challenging so that people are engaged in the story that you're telling, but also you can flip it on its head and say like, "Oh man, you guys, I didn't mean to kill you. I didn't mean for this to happen this way, but I listened to the dice. I listened to the rules. This just happened with Michael and I. I ended up killing one of his characters,
Hmm.
and they were basically flying sharks, as there are in D&D. And the way that they worked in the book,
Yeah, it's fine. Just go with it.
no big deal.
Yeah.
So just go with it and move along. They were chasing them, and the flying sharks attacked Michael's character and did some damage to it. And then the way the book is written is that they go after blood because they're sharks. And since he was the only one that was wounded, these sharks teamed up on him and killed him. And it's like, did I play that fairly or did I play that too mean? I feel like since nobody else was hurt, I played it fairly. Am I the bad guy, or am I like, this kind of rules like, hey, this is how it rolls. This is where the game goes here, and is that fair? And
The reason I felt like, from my perspective, that felt totally fair was it felt honest. It felt like the DM wasn't out to get me. He on his end was role playing those creatures honestly. Like, what was the honest choice to make in that moment? Was it to pull back because maybe then my character could survive, and just kind of scrape out a win from that situation, or which would kind of be like the dishonest thing to do, like fudging the characters a little bit in my favor? Or is it better to just play them honestly and whatever happens happens? Like, in that situation also, like, they were attacking our group, but I was going forward to like defend ourselves too. Like, I put myself in a situation that was maybe not the most tactically sound, and then I had to pay the consequences for that too, like, the whole reason I went down in the first place is I forgot about opportunity attacks. Or I didn't forget, but I kind of, there wasn't really much that I could do to avoid them,
yeah,
while also trying to, save or, attack
or protect or whatever.
forward. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a difficult situation, but it meant it led to some good
It
role
led to a lot. It led to a lot, and it's like everyone can appreciate that it was honest, and I think it's the most fair. I think that's the furthest as far as it goes, as like people versus people in D&D, and except for like in some cases where you're role playing really hard. Let's say Michael's a paladin and I'm a rogue, and he catches me stealing something. He's going to call me out because he's here to do
example.
God's work. That's a classic example of just like, he's here to do God's work. He's not going to roll around with some party member who's constantly stealing from the people that he just donated to. Like, this is not going to fly in his world. And so in that situation, there might be a role play conflict. Maybe it actually breaks into battle, but for the most part, it's
that
like
actually
solving
happened.
the puzzles. It did happen. It's solving the puzzles of the dungeon master, kind of, where it's competitive.
That actually happened in one of our games, but like, that's a classic example of like potential like player versus player, or PvP like scenario, where in some older editions or older like games, that might lead to like a full-blown conflict between the players that can't really be resolved other than like throwing down with each other. But like, in our example, when that happened, like, one of the other players in our group like stole from some people who were like already pretty downtrodden, and I was like, that's not cool. So what I did is I just donated my money, because I was playing the paladin, to try to balance the scales, and that's fine. I think
it comes up to the
you
role play,
can
right?
yeah, you can figure out another way, to resolve the conflict.
Yeah, that's a good question, man.
Tyler, what control do you have in that scenario?
In that scenario, I like to leave as much as I can up to the dice, but in that scenario, I was like, well, if this character is going to steal the money from the kind of downtrodden people, I need to know if anybody else sees it. So I have them roll. I have a contested roll, say like, hey, what's their passive perceptive abilities to see if they're being stolen from while having a conversation with somebody else. And then in that case, I might say, hey, they notice you, and they're going to turn around. They're going to try to sock you in the face for stealing out of their pocket while they're having a conversation. They're going to call the guards on you. And then I have stat blocks for guards that come over, and they have spears and they could do damage. They have a jail in town they could take you to. Yeah. And it also can weave in the way of like, well, I want to push this narrative forward today. I want to kind of get them out of this town. So I'll just let them like, this person must be down on their luck. If they did perceive it, whatever, I'm going to let it slide. And kind of like, however I want to, kind of shift the narrative as a DM, I could say like, it's fine. You take the 10 gold, you go on your way, and you guys move on. It's kind of how I'm feeling. It's also a lot of, I feel like, reading the table, and like what we said earlier, the more you're honest with the people, the role play, and all that kind of stuff, the more you get into it, the kind of better story that you're going to end up with. Yeah.
Being able to read the group is a hugely beneficial skill, and it's difficult, but you can kind of measure if people are engaged or not.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing also in like a session 0, like a session before you start playing, before you start rolling dice. Maybe you're still figuring out your character. Talk about what your goals are with people. Talk about like, hey, this is the kind of session. This is kind of overarching story I want to have with you guys. I want to have one that's combat heavy. We don't spend much time in towns. We kill a lot of goblins. And then you're
Yeah.
gonna like not focus on that stuff as much. Okay, you guys go back to town, you resupply, you rest up. Okay, there's more goblins to kill in the mountains. Like,
Yeah.
let's go. And it really depends on what kind of story you want to tell. A lot of people
And
are totally different too.
And the goblins can't be reasoned with, so don't even try it. They're unpredictable and treacherous, and don't
Yeah.
even try to do it.
That's the
If
game
you
that
make
you
a
want to roll.
pacifist
Yeah.
character, that's going to make it way more difficult for you because
It depends on it depends on the characters, and the DM weaves the story around the players and what they want.
yeah.
It's
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation. It's very fun. It's very fluid. It's back and forth like crazy. I love it because it's all improv. I feel like 90% of it is like I have the stats and I know the things that are set in stone, but everything else I can weave and make up and have fun and listen to the players, make sure everyone's trying to have fun.
Yeah.
What is the Tomb of Horrors?
That's
So the Tomb of Horrors is a dungeon that was created by Gary Gygax I think sometime in the 80s. And it's known it's a challenge dungeon that's like held up as like the kind of challenge dungeon because of like how many traps and stuff. Like just surviving the dungeon is in and of itself a success. It's like, I don't know, it's like kind of like a proto Dark Souls sort of thing, I want to say, just because if it's like it's super difficult and dark and dangerous, and like I know that I've had friends who like have survived the dungeon just because they let everyone else go first, basically. And that's how they were able to kind of like, you don't touch anything, you don't interact with anything. It's all designed to kill you.
Yeah.
And just getting to the end of it is the challenge.
What I think it was is like Gary Gygax, they got so high level and whatever, and the players were like getting really cocky. He just says, okay, I'm going to create a dungeon that you almost can't beat.
Right.
Almost impossible. Like I remember one of the puzzles that I listened to once. One of the puzzles, you have to touch a staff to the door, but if you touch the wrong side of the staff to the door, it like blows up and kills everybody. It's it's unnecessarily brutal.
Yeah.
Tomb of Horrors is I feel like the end game just to end the game.
Yeah. It's
ridiculous.
in a similar vein, there's a magic item which is kind of known for being the campaign ender of magic items, which is the Deck of Many Things. And it got that reputation because there are cards that, so you get the item and then you pull, like you say, I'm going to pull 3 cards from the deck, and then you pull 3 cards and you get what you get. And some of them are like wondrous boons that like your character's whisked off and becomes the king of a new kingdom or something, or gets like 100,000 gold pieces and retires safely or whatever. Or some of them are like you're banished to a plane, a jail plane where you can never escape, and that's it.
So what happens to that person and that character then? They're done for the night and they sit out.
That character's done. I
They have to
mean,
create a new character, or it's like
Depends on how
dodgeball.
fast paced. Yeah, it depends on how fast paced it is. If like they have characters in the background, yeah, go for it. If they have characters in the background that are ready to jump in, that's fine. But sometimes it's like you're done for the night. You can sit here and watch, or we'll invite you next session if you have a character. If we have the table space, it's like you
yeah,
can kind of decide whatever you want with the next, you know. Or you
All
could
right.
find as a DM, say like, you know what, there is one secret way that we can get your soul back. It's going to be very difficult, very hard. Let's go on that adventure, and like whatever you want to do with it, it's super fun. You know.
Uh,
yeah. If you want, but yeah, uh, if you just play it straight, it should be known that playing it straight can be like, well, this might be the end of this character's career, so have a backup ready maybe. So
Yeah.
okay, so have you ever been a real awful DM and gotten someone out of the game to maybe spitefully, or you didn't like that person?
ooh,
Tyler,
that's a
you're
great
I'm
question.
already
already
nodding.
shaking your head.
I'm already
Yes.
nodding because we had started this campaign and I was a first time DM and I was super stoked and I was watching a lot of podcasts, so I feel like I understood it, right? So I was inviting people in, and then there's a guy that like I barely knew
Yeah.
that came into our game, and I
Didn't have a
just
strong character. You didn't like the cut of his jib.
well, like yeah, it was always it's what I like to call first player syndrome, where it's like he needs to be in every single situation, every single conversation, can't let anybody else talk, and like he kind of stole the spotlight a lot, and just like I have 7 people at my table, man. I need to give somebody else a moment without you there, without you making a comment. Just like just hold on for me, like
Yeah.
and it does happen, and it's like where that real life camaraderie doesn't line up, and you kind of have to take action, and it just happened that it kind of dissolved away a little bit, and I brought some of the other players back into it, but um, it's a very real thing, and I think every DM can relate to one character who's either like really into it, or like with this character specifically, he did a lot of role play and then he did not fight in combat, like he did not participate. He had more than enough opportunity or spells at his disposal, and he was just like, I choose to do nothing. I was like, all right, man. And okay, you're not getting experience points. That's all I can say for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just it's a challenging situation, and how you handle that as a DM is very important too. It's kind of like being a coach and like saying, why weren't you running out there, man? I pay you to
Yeah.
run. I pay you to go out there or whatever. So
Right. Yeah. Effort.
I don't. Yeah,
Give
put
effort.
effort. Put
Really.
effort. I'm putting 100% into this. I need you to give me 50.
Yeah.
I'm writing a story. I'm weaving all these thoughts. I'm talking to 7 people and making sure I'm trying to make sure everyone's having fun.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just gets tricky, but there's a way around
As
it. There's things you could do.
as a player, like I have definitely gotten notes about like I need to make sure that I give other players a chance to speak up to, and I think that that's something that you have to like work on sometimes, because I've been on the other end of that where I do have something I want to say in situations, in a lot of them, but like you also, as you get more, I don't know if it's more like experience, but you just understand like you can let other people have their moment too, you know. And
Enjoy the
that's
story from
part.
their perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's give them their chance to shine, and like helping lift their character up too can be fun and interesting, you know. And
Yeah.
I feel like when you're playing a new character and like you're in a new game, there's at least for me, there's like I want to here's what my character's all about, and I want everyone to know so they get to know my character, you know. Uh but then once that's over, it's a good, but you also have to give other people a chance to do that for their character, and then once
Mhm.
everyone has kind of done that, then you got to kind of just make sure it's
Yeah, you're
equal
kind of
going around.
figuring out your table dynamic is how I like to call it, because like not only are you having your own personality here, but you're also trying to leave that at the door, step into the mind of this person that you've created so that you can role play them correctly, and then also a group dynamic. because we have a group dynamic where I play with Michael as players, and he is a bug guy who doesn't talk. Totally different dynamic than his paladin, who is like taking charge, leading the group, talking to the nobles of the town. Totally different. He's a bug who jumps on roofs and then is a barbarian who rages into battle. So
Yeah.
it's
And
also kind
and
of understanding
sometimes
the group
ignores
dynamic.
conversations that I can listen, I can understand, but I don't want to be a part of.
Yeah. And so that's the kind of point where you go like, okay, I'm enjoying the story as Michael. My bug guy doesn't know what's happening, and I need to
Yeah.
role play that. It's fun. It's so many different things you could do with it that make it I don't know, endlessly entertaining for us, I think.
Yeah.
Good question.
That's a good point that Tyler brought up too, of like you can stay engaged as a player while also playing a character that feels differently than that may not be like a team player, you know?
Yeah.
Do you guys want to get into some more history?
I
Sure.
do.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh, yeah.
so we know when it started, right? 73 or 74.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget the
Some
exact year, but
78.
yeah, but one of those. I think it was 74, but
So
I don't remember.
so what made it get so much attention? Why in those first few years, what made it become such a big deal and such a kind of an iconic thing? It seems like pretty early on because when you think of the 70s and early 80s, I feel like that's one of the things you think of that people was a major pastime.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things there. I feel like uh it was kind of considered, I think, a niche activity for a while, you know? Like it was very big and revolutionary in like the gaming space, and I feel like D&D especially was like the first kind of role-playing game of its kind. So everything that happened in the 70s after D&D came out was kind of like a reaction to it, either like kind of trying to go forward with the ideas that it presented, or saying like, no, I don't like that, and then I'm going to do my own thing, you know, sort of situation. uh there's actually a lot of the knowledge that I have on this topic is stuff that I've gleaned from the Vintage RPG podcast, which I'll shout them out because I love that podcast. Uh, and that's kind of how I've assimilated a lot of the information there. And they talk about like so many different like RPGs that have came out during that time. And that's the idea that I've gotten, is that just like it was a pioneering sort of type of game that hadn't really been tried before, and uh really opened people's minds up to like the possibilities that you could do with a
Yeah.
role-playing game, you know.
I think it was very innovative, It was
Innovative
very
is the word.
innovative and like kind of one of its own, of just like, well, you mean there's no like clear picture of like there's no video game of like here's what exactly it looks like. It's like, no, we're all thinking of this in the same time, but in our own brains and in our own image, and then the dice tell us what to do. And it's kind of like this thing. I mean, it's inventive, and the first couple thoughts that I had was like stuff like Lord of the Rings, where it's like, oh, this really cool high fantasy and like these wizards who do these really crazy things. Um, I want to be like that. And then this kind of game can allow me to be like that. I think that's one draw that like I kind of had when I was a kid. I know that's not the 70s. That was the early 90s or late 90s, but it's kind
Well,
of
the way you're describing it almost sounds like as a group you are reading and writing the same book together. Like
yeah,
just the way you're describing it and how you use your imagination and just the way you talked about it's something that you're all visualizing but individually in your own minds, but the story is advancing together, which and like
exactly.
it clicked a little bit further there when you were
Yeah,
talking, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? It's
yeah.
I'm getting more and more into the idea of it
The,
Yeah.
and
the
understanding.
best way I love it described is like having a shared dream. You all picture it in your
Mm.
own way. You're all adding on to the dream with your subconscious and like putting things here and there and clarifying things. But also, it doesn't matter to anybody else. It's for you. it's for you and your group of friends that you share together. It's like, oh, cool, my landlord mowed my lawn in my dream last night. So who cares? Like, like leave me alone.
Lawnmower had
Like,
pepperoni wheels. Yeah.
with pepperoni wheels on it, and it was getting the grass really greasy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got really mad, but I had to go to catch a flight to Aruba. So,
Yeah.
you know,
You guys are
kinda
playing
like,
D&D right now.
you know, it's almost D&D right now.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
roll for plane ticket. But it's kind of like the thing where it's like that doesn't matter to me. It's like, but for the people who were there and who spent, you know, once a month or maybe twice a month playing and like went on for 3 years developing these characters, having these stories and these tales that exist for them, it's like it's gonna stay with me forever. The moral lessons that I learned as my character, or the feelings that I felt. Like, I mean, people cry at D&D tables sometimes when the emotions stir and like it gets you thinking about real life, or like gets you involved with these characters that you've, you know, grown with. My current one of the groups that I play with online, they were my first groups that I played with way back in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And it's kind of that thing where it's like I have an attachment to this world that we've created. It's like I grew up with my imaginative state there. I've written, countless hours of writing things about my character, or writing things about the story, or
Yeah.
imagining as a kid, and like my developmental years in this kind of headspace at certain times. And you know, that could mean something for a lot of people, and it kind of grows with you.
I mean, same for me with like the ideas. I mean, Tyler and I have both been like playing D&D for a long time and thinking about D&D for a long time. So like the ideas that we've had like growing up, like thinking about those things, also like we like building off of those ideas to this day and seeing how they progress and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have characters with my brother that go all the way back, and you know, they have kids, and my characters have kids, and my characters have kids. Of just like, I have a whole lineage of like time passing in that world, and I'm still living in this world as a 29-year-old. And you know, my goals are obviously different. I don't get as jazzed about having a wand of fireballs, but it's still fun. It's still fun
No,
to
you
have.
get jazzed about Wander Fireball still. That's
I
still
do,
good.
I do. I
Yeah.
completely lied.
Yeah. He was playing so back to the chat GPT thing.
Yeah,
My friend had shown me that like you can use GPT to like to do a lot of like stuff for you that is sometimes hard to come up with as a GM. Like a classic example is like, oh, this is the person that I want. There's like a man in the corner and he's like, smoking a pipe, and he's like mysterious and he's got a cloak, and he's like, and the players are like, that's cool. Hey, what's that goblin doing in the corner over there? And then they're like, I don't know, he's eating cheese. It's like, oh, I want to go talk to him. Okay. His
instead of the
what?
guy that you spent so
Yeah.
much prep on. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And then what's this goblin's name? Boblin. Boblin the Goblin. I love him,
yeah,
and it becomes the party's new favorite character,
yeah.
and you have to like swerve to figure it out. But like getting ass names, or like coming up with NPCs where you've prepped and like kind of what you want to hook the party with, but then they sidestep that and you have to come up with something new. Chat GPT, because it's an AI language model thing, you can just be like, quickly, I need a couple of NPCs, and then
Yeah,
it can
throw them in
spit
the
it out,
mix.
and it does a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's a great tool for sure. But like, I think that's one of the other draws of D&D is the flexibility and like the creativity that comes with like it. It took like, I
yeah,
forget who it was. It was some famous celebrity who was playing D&D for the first time, and it took him almost the entire session to realize like, wait a minute, I can do anything. Like, I could just say my character does this and we'll see if it happens. Like, I'll roll for it, or I'll fail, or like, I can literally try. I walk out of the tavern, and then you walked out of the tavern. It's like, okay,
yeah,
what are
I
you
do
doing
so.
outside? I don't know. What's outside? Okay, you see building, you see a horse. Okay, I steal the horse. Okay, you steal the horse, and you go off. And it's like it took them a while to realize, oh, it's like a video game, but you can literally make up the rules, break the boundaries, go anywhere. And I think
It's
that's
like
definitely one of the draws of it.
It's
we
like
talked
being a child, and then like then having consciousness and realizing, oh, I can do things.
about. Yeah,
It's
I
like
can
waking
fly.
up.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah,
like, oh, I get to decide what I want to do. This is
yeah.
amazing. And then you jump off a tree,
And then you
and
jump
you're
off a
like,
tree, break your leg, and your character has to rest for a week. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
or something like that.
Why do you think outcasts were drawn to it and still are?
Mm,
Uh, I
that's a
don't
good.
know.
That's a good question.
Cause that's an interesting question.
I feel
I
like
guess
there's
because it lets you it kind of just lets you be whoever you want to be, because you can kind of role play however you want to, and usually you're among your friends, so it's people that you trust, that you get to, it's like a safe place that you can be who you want to be. So it's just like, it's all about finding whoever your group of friends is that you feel comfortable around. It's just an
yeah.
excuse to kind of be in a comfortable environment. um
I feel like there's a dynamic with like, hey, there was also like the whole because D&D talks about demons and devils, that there's this whole like it is an anti-Christian game and all this stuff, and people were really scared of it. So it had to be, sometimes it had to be people who were like comfortable enough saying like, hey, it's not like that, but I play this game. I'm down to my basement and nobody will see us play it. And you have to have a tight group of people. I mean, why it's Outcast specifically though, I wouldn't know. But I think like they're definitely, like Michael was saying, has to be that comfortability with a tight group of people that like, trust me, I don't worship Satan. Come to my basement and play this game
yeah.
and you'll see what it's about. And yeah, that's a very good question. I would like to research that quite a bit of why that group of people. But I also feel like there was like a kind of a separation between like jocks and maybe nerds and maybe like these outcasts, as we call them, or whatever, in the that separation was a lot stronger back then. And I think that those lines are breaking more recently. More of
Yeah.
a crossover, I feel.
That's a great point.
Pop culture and stuff like that coming into play. Um,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah, there definitely
just
was a hard separation when you think about 80s, when you think about like Breakfast Club and like we could never get along. It's like it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
I feel like some of that is partially it I the thing is I, from personal experience, never really felt like I fit into like an outcast sort of thing. It's just a thing that I really like doing, you know, but I never felt like I was ostracized for liking it.
Newsflash, buddy.
You're an outcast.
Oh
You
no.
are an outcast.
Oh no. Oh
You
no.
can't see it from the inside, man.
I've,
What's
yeah,
happening?
Yeah.
You're out.
I've seen the Incast, and you're an outcast.
Oh
I've
shit.
seen it, yeah.
Oh shit. I
Yeah.
didn't know. I didn't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Well, now you're out, dude.
Yeah.
God.
I've been cast out now.
Yeah, you guys give fantastic questions, and I feel like we haven't talked about sports enough. But I appreciate your questions very much.
Speaking of sports, tonight is a major, monumental annual event in the sports year. Do you
Oh,
know
yeah.
what? Do you know what tonight is?
Tonight is
Baseball
the
happens.
last Wednesday of April Madness.
Aggravated April? No, I don't know what it is.
No, okay.
Today is the NFL draft. It is the first round of the
Oh,
NFL draft.
snap.
Do you know what the NFL
Yeah. I've
what the
played
draft
fantasy
is?
football.
that's the
Yeah.
football league, and they choose their players for the year, or new players. They buy
Choosing new
people.
players. So that's what I wanted to ask you guys, just as somewhat of an outsiders of the sports world.
Yeah.
You finish high school, or you finish college, or you leave college early, and you get chosen to what city you're going to work in for the next handful of years. And then after those handful of years, and you're going to get paid millions to do it, but after that handful of years, then that that same city will have the rights to keep you longer if they want, and then maybe down the road after that you'll have the option to do to do your work wherever you decide. What do you guys think about that? And just even in your own professions in your own life, how would you guys feel about basically being forced in some ways to live in that specific city based
If you
on
want to pursue
one.
it,
Yeah.
So
Uh,
I actually had a guy from my high school. He got drafted for the Mets. I want to say he was the first kid from our high school to get into a Major League Baseball team, and instantly he was like training in the middle of the country. Then he was training with the Mets. Now he plays for Seattle, and just like,
Well,
what does it mean that he is? Yeah, he's in baseball. I was like,
Yep.
what does he mean that he was from my high school if he's all over the country now? It's like he could have played for the Giants or the A's to be local, but like that's not how the cookie crumbles. And it's kind of like, if you want to pursue that, you gotta know what it takes, right? Like you got to be ready to go, and you're also going to be traveling all the time, going to the cities to play games, and like if this is
Yeah.
what your passion is, it's crazy to me because I mean I couldn't do it, I don't think, but if you're good and you're talented like those kids that get picked up, they feel like they're worth it. I feel like there's a movie about that too. I'll have to think about that.
It feels like it doesn't feel that crazy to me, because I mean, if you think about, if you ask that of like a different profession, like, I don't know, if you were like a carpenter or something, or like a metal worker or something, and you were like, but metalworking's like a big thing in like one specific city, it wouldn't be that weird to like say like, oh, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to do this thing in high school, and then I'm going to go to where it's big in another part of
Yeah.
the country or something,
Say Silicon Valley. Now I got to move to San
right.
Francisco and figure out my whole Silicon Valley tech
Yeah.
life and commute.
Or
And,
finance or something, and I'm going to go to Wall Street,
yeah.
now in New York.
And even major pieces of Hollywood have
Or
moved
Hollywood. Yeah.
to Georgia, Texas, Pacific Northwest, and even
Right.
Vancouver, BC.
If you want to be an animator for Adult Swim, you got to go to Atlanta, or
Yeah.
whatever.
If you want to be Orlando Bloom and shoot Lord of the Rings, you got to go to New Zealand where they're shooting it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect tie back in. Yeah, we got there.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's kind of it's crazy, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
But it's
I think the important thing that you said there is they get paid millions, and I'd
true.
that seems like a small price to pay. I have to go live in Milwaukee for however long.
There you
Why
go.
Just
Milwaukee?
the first city that
Why
is on the
Milwaukee,
top of my
dude?
head.
Shout out to all our Milwaukee listeners. We're
well,
sorry.
You guys, we talked about Kevin Smith before. You're familiar with,
I love
of
Kevin
course,
Smith.
like the Jersey Trio and his movies, and he's one of my favorite directors. At least two was top three for me for many years. Now I would probably have to reassess that. But the movie Dogma, 1999, we'll say, the two angels who are, I think, they're not
Matt
allowed in heaven.
Damon
It's Matt Damon and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
They're forced to live in purgatory, which I think it's purgatory or if it's hell on earth, but they are stuck at an airport in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Oh, is that it?
Yeah.
Dang, I forgot that. That's really funny.
So anytime somebody says that, I always think about like, well,
You've got a point.
movies. It's in the movies. It's in the movies. I've been there.
All the movies think it's true.
It's got to be true.
That's true. Well, with the NFL draft being today, Anthony, what do you like watching for as a fan? What are you keeping your eyes on? Are you saying, I hope this coach chooses the guy from this team? Are you that closely into it and watching individuals?
Less so with football, more so with basketball. In basketball, there's only 2 rounds. There's only 12 to 15, now 15 players on a team. So, and then on the college teams, there's only 12 or so guys. And so when you watch the NBA draft, it's only two rounds, and you've seen, a lot of the players because there's just less players on each college teams. You're also like not having a hat or helmet on. There's that, like, there's just that recognition, I think, with a lot of players.
Cool.
Yeah.
So the NBA draft, that's one where I know a lot of the players. NFL is very tough, but I'm from Wisconsin, so Green Bay Packers fan. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did.
Oh my god.
Hell yeah.
I leaned in for that one.
Yeah.
I
All
do
right. What are we
apologize.
drinking? What are we drinking?
Yeah, we'll get back to your point, but real quick,
We will get back to your point, but
you're talking about the Packers.
we got PBR, baby.
PBR.
Good old PBR.
Where's that from, Michael?
Milwaukee.
There you go. That's right.
Good
I
guess.
actually
Good guess, yeah.
I inferred from context clues.
I'm drinking this. I don't specifically recommend it. It's Ranch Water Spicy Hard Seltzer. It's made with 100% agave, natural lime juice, and jalapeno flavors. You need to
I
be
had one of
ready
those.
for that. You need to be ready for that.
It's
You're gonna need to be ready for when you're shitting water in 3 hours.
Yeah.
Spicy water, yeah, absolutely.
And then I got Red Hook Hazy Big Ballard IPA.
I do like those Big Ballard boys.
These are good. They're pretty cheap, high ABV.
They're cheap, high ABV. That's
so let's get it going, boys.
Oh, sorry, you were talking about
The
I do
Packers.
I get excited for the NFL draft when the Packers. Tonight's only the first round, and rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. But for the first round, it's more about hoping that's the time there's the most likely to be players from college that I'm recognize or am aware of. And if there's another guy from Wisconsin, I'd want him to get drafted. But a lot of times when it comes to the Packers, I just want them to draft a certain position to make the team better. But what I've found over the years is that I know nothing, and sometimes who I think is a bum is awesome, and sometimes who I think is awesome is an absolute bum. So it's a tough thing to like get excited about, because it's not like they're playing games until mid-September.
Yeah.
So
they got
people
train.
do get really excited about it. They said there'll be 250,000 people in Kansas City for the draft over the next 3 days.
God.
So it's like it really has become an event. Yeah, it used to
event,
just be in New York, where at Radio City, I believe, is where they did it for years. And over the last 10 years, they started traveling, doing it in Chicago, Philadelphia,
a big
lot of
venue.
different places. And yeah, absolutely. But just making it a major event and kind of the beginning of the new NFL year.
Have either of you guys ever been to Radio City Music Hall before?
Yes, sir.
I have not, but I would love to. Tell me.
I have been there. I don't think I've seen a show there actually, but I've been to the theater and had a tour inside it, and it is a massive theater. It's wild. Yeah.
Cool.
The closest that we have here in Portland is the Keller Auditorium, and like that pales in comparison. The Keller's big, but
Keller's big, dude.
Keller's big. It's not as big as Radio City.
Damn.
Radio City's big.
When are we going?
Massive. I don't know when it matters, I guess.
It matters.
I love that. That's just. I mean, there's so many of them in New York, but a historical venue, obviously.
A buddy of mine actually saw a band called Porcupine Tree at Radio City Music Hall the year that they broke up.
Ooh, spicy.
So the last year that they played together as a band, but then they got back together recently. So, whatever.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. I was worried about Porcupine fucking Tree, dude. No, they are good. I think you played them for me once or twice. I think they're fun.
They're kick ass.
How would you describe their genre?
Progressive rock and metal.
Okay.
That's an easy one. I feel like that's the genre that they're going for, and they are definitely producing that.
What's a D&D player's favorite band?
I mean, that depends.
Really, that's a great way to like get a gist for the kind of player and DM maybe that you are.
Yeah, because
what kind of music that you like.
There's a whole thing about Joe Manganiello's Death Saves that Michael's wearing right now, that brand. He wanted to make the classic kind of metal shirts that are just like, barely legible, white and black, like totally like bleeding, kind of shirt. He's like, I want to bring that back because 80s kids were all like that wore those kind of clothes and stuff, but I want to make it about D&D. So he made it as metal as possible. He's got really cool ones about like
that's awesome.
all these crazy famous D&D characters and
It's also
monsters and
probably
shit.
what contributed to the D&D like Satanic Panic stuff was also like maybe some of the people who were playing D&D were listening to Slayer and
To
Iron
death
Maiden
metal, and that
and
already had this negative
Twisted
connotation,
Sister, Metallica,
That's so funny because I was
Megadeth.
gonna wear an Ozzy Diary of a Madman, Ozzy
There you
Osbourne
go.
shirt
Yeah.
today.
Perfect.
Well, you think
That's
about
in
like
D&D, bro.
the funny thing is like a lot of that music also was getting popular around the same time that like D&D was getting popular, and I feel like it's just a kind of co-emergent sort of thing where they were just they complement each other because they were just happening at the same time.
Yeah, look at the charts. We got this going up. We got this going up. Must be a correlation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe. One thing before we move off from the NFL draft, I was always wondering who gets to pick first? How does that work? Do you roll for it? Because I think you should absolutely roll
It
for it.
depends on the Super Bowl, I think, right? I think like some like if you like were bottom I think if you were like the bottom seed in the previous year, you get first draft pick or something, like kind of to keep things even, if I'm remembering correctly, or I'm just making
Or
that
you're
up.
the Yankees who just buys every good player.
That does happen, but
You
in
can
the
always do
draft,
trades afterwards. So
this is true. And actually, so the worst team gets the first pick, the best team gets the last pick of that round, and kind of on from there. So this year the Chicago Bears were the worst team and had the first overall pick, but they traded that pick in a package that they received a package of picks and players from the Carolina Panthers.
Oh wow.
So the
who
Panthers
did pretty
traded
well.
up. They were all right. And so they moved up like 8 or 9 spots to have the first overall pick. So even though you have the first overall pick because you're the worst team, you can trade it to get players or more picks or a combination or even sometimes money. Or the classic in baseball is a player to be named later, where you don't even know who you're gonna get.
Oh wow, yeah. Trade for like, hey, I'm gonna want somebody from you at some point. It's like an IOU. That's crazy.
Yeah,
That's really nuts.
We don't know
That's
who's going to blow up this year, but we want to get him when he does.
Yeah, exactly right. Or we're watching this guy. We have one spot. We're gonna see who's doing okay. That's nuts.
It's
I love
crazy.
it.
It feels very shady, like insider
Complicated,
deals are happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's lobbyists like, hey, can you pick up I can't name a single football player. Never mind.
Tom Brady.
I was thinking Tom Brady, but he's
retired.
We'll see, but yes, currently, technically,
Isn't he like 70 years old?
He's 45, I believe. He retired last year and then unretired, I think 6 weeks later.
Yeah.
So but he's currently retired, but we'll see.
Why did he do that? Did he need more money? It's not for the money.
It's actually for the love of football. Basically, he retired, was around his family for like a month and a half.
Said I'm done with them.
And he was like, he went back to
football.
The football.
I'd rather be anywhere else.
And he left the team. I believe they got divorced. Like this was actually a big deal that he chose to go back and play football for one extra year. Basically, cost him his marriage.
40 something now. He's been doing
45, oldest quarterback basically that we've ever seen in the modern era.
He's been doing this
years.
Forever. Yeah, he's been doing this almost my entire life.
Yeah, I was in middle school when he took over. I saw him play in college actually at Michigan against Wisconsin. It was crazy.
That's so cool. But
did they win?
I feel bad about his marriage.
I think Michigan. Well, Michigan, I believe. Michigan was so good at the time. Badgers had their years, but Michigan has always kind of been a step above. What's
Michigan's
for many
team?
years. The Wolverines.
Oh,
blue and
Wolverines.
Gold. Oh, the college team.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
He said college. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I thought you were saying you were in college, but you saw like Tom Brady playing like a professional game.
It makes sense why people watch college now. It's not just because it's like, oh, this is just more football. It's like, no, these guys could get drafted.
And you look around and it really is the minor league system or developmental system for the NFL, which is kind of messed up because like the academic portion of it isn't really being taken all that seriously, but at the same time the amount of money that those programs are bringing in, there's, I don't know, there's definitely a lot of conversations to be had about, I guess, the shadiness of the NCAA and
What's that?
how that all works. That's like college football and college basketball and like the National Collegiate Athletics Association, I believe is what it
I
is.
believe you. No, I believe you
Okay.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds
I'm not gonna
sounds
even
right.
Google it.
No, I'm not even gonna put it into Chat
I'm
GPT.
just I'm gonna
I
believe
you. Yeah.
wholeheartedly.
Yeah. We should fact
That's
check you. We're trying to learn sports here. And
you should fact check us. Honestly, we say
Yeah.
a lot of bullshit when it comes to D&D stuff. So
The
All right.
thing is about
I got
D&D
my eye
rules,
on you
though.
guys.
The thing
yeah.
is about D&D rules, though, is that they say, at least in this edition, this is the only one I've DM'd, they say, like, feel free to take these and fuck it, do whatever you want with them.
Throw it
Change
out the
them,
window.
manipulate them, and throw them out the window and come up with your own. And that's kind of like the beauty of it, of just like, if you don't think this works well, feel free. If you don't think players should, take fall damage from falling out of a tree, whatever. Maybe you
Yeah.
didn't remember. Maybe it doesn't matter that much to you. Whatever. And that's kind of like absurd when it comes to games, And I think that's one cool thing about it too. But I was going to ask you, what do you think are some unwritten rules about maybe the sports world, maybe about football or basketball specifically? And like one thing that I thought of was like if you dunk on another guy and you're playing basketball and you taunt all over his face after he's fallen on
Unsportsmanlike.
his eye, like what unwritten rules in that regard of like how much respect do you give, but also when are you a showman and when are you like your ego comes into play and you're just acting naturally.
That one, I mean, you could get a foul for, or yeah, taunting and things like that. You could get a technical foul in basketball. I would say a response to that could be where they foul you really hard for doing something like that the next time you try it. So that would be something I think is kind of like maybe somewhat of an unwritten rule is that you can almost, when you do something like that, you can almost expect to be hit with a hard foul at some point where the other team's going to probably try and knock you on your ass.
Yeah.
One in baseball that I think is important is they say when, I mean, in baseball it's great because there's so many. There's literally books that are called the unwritten rules. Like there are
Seems a little
established
counterintuitive.
thing that exists. I know they're unwritten, but they are written. Because there's just so many things in baseball. But one would be when a pitcher is throwing a no hitter, that you don't try and bunt for a base hit. So just to try and like do something real cheap to get on base, is that you're, especially when it's later in the game, this guy's got a no hitter, that you can't just drop a bunt down and try and get a single and
Cheap run.
get something cheap that way. You got to get a real hit. So that's one in baseball,
That's
and there's
cool.
and there's
That's
a lot
respect thing. That's a respect thing, right?
and I think you see that especially in baseball, the respect level team to team and in situation to situation is higher than in any other sport. And some of those things have gone down quite a bit just with some of the celebrations and times of home runs and things like that.
Yeah.
But for the most part, baseball still is like there's a lot of respect shown for those things.
Yeah, but you will still see people charge the mound. You'll still see like the teams flood out of the benches and stuff.
Absolutely.
When like, hey, you guys are being too much. You guys are stomping on our guys, and it's over the top. Yeah.
Yep.
It's a weird. So do players who don't ascribe to the unwritten rules, written rules, do they get like ostracized, I guess, because it feels to me like it just takes like a few people being like, well, I'm here to win, like sort of mentality, and like almost a real politic sort of attitude towards it, where it's like if I can like get the bunt and get points and move our team ahead, why would I ascribe to this notion of I guess it's respect, but it's still a game, and like there's like people's like bottom lines are defined by these games too, like if you do poorly in a game, I imagine if you do really poorly, then that hurts, and it's like,
yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like there's D&D versions of this where like it is just like, yeah, there's a logical response here, and I'm just gonna like try to do this, and it's what I would do, it's what my character would do. But there's a
Yeah.
meme somewhere on the internet where the big bad evil guy, they call it the BBEG, that the DM has been planning since the beginning, that has been hinting at, that has been fighting you and getting away, and you're finally facing him, and he's finally like, as the DM, he's giving his final monologue to the party of saying, you know, you've finally caught up with me. This is the end for one of us. You know, whatever it is, their big monologue, and then one guy's just like, I shoot him while he's talking. It's just like, yeah, I
The
mean, yeah,
DM's a
you can
player
do that.
too.
You could do that too, but like there's a bit of a respect thing with like, no, the DM has crafted this guy for so long and put so much thought into this moment where you guys finally confront this guy. Let him have his moment, even if it's not the most logical choice, even if it's
Yeah.
not like I got to do the maximum damage right now. It's like have the respect, have the moment, and kind of be in it. Yeah.
I think that's good. Also, you should if you're playing with a group that long, you should be able to have the conversation with your players too. Of like, it's a mutual respect thing. Like, if you know that your players are the type of people who want to shoot first while or try to gain the advantage uh, while the villain is distracting themselves, uh, then you should see it coming if you're playing with a group that long and kind of prepare for it. So also, you know, like it is a respect thing if it happens a lot in the game and you're like, hey, you can have the conversation like, I'm a player too, man. I want to have a chance to shine with
Mhm.
my
My
ideas,
moment. Yeah.
with my moment. Let me have my moment. I'll be sure to give you yours. But if you're gonna cheat me out of my moment,
My big monologue that I wrote and spent hours late at night writing,
you're gonna
and
you don't want to make the ruler of the universe that angry.
yeah, yeah, the DM. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah, and I think the same goes with a lot of these sports references and uh, bunting against the
Yeah.
no hitter pitcher.
Someone could get upset. I feel like
But I could see a guy who's a big jerk going up to the mound and being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna, I'm gonna go up there and get hit by the ball." It's like, bro, like just let him shine if he's going to shine. If you can hit one off of him, good for you.
There you
Like fair
go.
enough. Yeah,
that'll make
Yep.
it even better
that'll make it
too.
better.
The
Exactly.
Yeah,
story is better that way.
the story's
But
better in baseball. Yeah, it's
yeah.
good. It's the climactic ending. Yeah,
That's
Mhm.
exactly right.
of
That's
the movie.
exactly right.
And that honestly, it's true though that like that sort of situation, like if they're having a no hitter night and then they like bottom of the ninth, like hit a home run and like manage to
That's the way the dice rolls, baby.
get the underdog win,
Yeah,
that's a way better story anyway. That's gonna drive more people to it.
Yep.
yeah, exactly right.
You
Hell
just
yeah.
have to sit through 9 innings of boring. Oh, he didn't hit it again.
No,
get
I
there.
love it. I love baseball. I love that there's no clock to baseball. Can we talk about that real quick? I love that all these other sports they have a clock, and there's a methodical way to go about your quarters,
Yeah.
and like with the last minute who's got the most points at the end. But baseball, that ball is getting thrown in front of the last guy until there's 3 outs in the last inning.
So this is true. I will say this year in baseball they did add a pitch clock, so that way a pitcher can't, and this goes for a hitter as well. It's taken a half hour off of games, but it's
Oh, wow.
basically a half hour off of in between stuff that didn't necessarily need to be there. So instead of games being 3 hours and 10 minutes, it's down to about 2 hours 39 minutes, 2 hours 40 minutes.
I didn't hear about that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
So when a pitcher gets the ball, he has 16 seconds to throw the ball. But if there's 15 or 16, and then if there's someone on base, they have 20, and they can only throw to the base each time to kind of keep the runner at their base. They can only throw twice. If they throw again, it has to be an out, or the base runner gets the next
You're
Get to the
kidding?
next
That's
phase.
huge.
Yeah, it really is. But to your point,
Oh,
it
wow.
still is. It can take however long until you all 27 outs are
Wow.
basically
That's changed the game of baseball. Look
it
at that.
really has. And so that's the other thing I wanted to bring up about baseball is that you heard about the Oakland A's this week.
Mm-mm.
Tell
It
us.
sounds like they will be heading to Las Vegas most
No.
likely. Yeah.
They stole the Raiders and now they're stealing the A's.
There's
That-
nothing in that Coliseum anymore now. There's nothing going on.
This is going to be one of the final years.
Do they have a hockey team?
The Sharks, I guess, but that's San Jose. But yeah.
Yeah. And technically, the Warriors moved from Oakland to
Yeah.
San Francisco. So
Yeah.
this is the third major pro sports franchise in the last 8 to 10 years that left Oakland.
That's insane.
Yeah.
That's
R.I.P.
insane.
in
I
peace,
drove by
Oakland.
them. I grew up in the Bay Area and I drove by that Coliseum. I was always looking at the billboards. Late
Yeah.
at night coming home, I'd watch the big lights beyond. And yeah, always passing the full parking lots. And now there's nobody there.
Yep. And
They've been talking about this for a while though, too, right? Not just the
Yeah.
Raiders, but the A's. The A's have been talking about moving to Fremont, California for a while. They've been talking about moving maybe further south, but I guess they watched the Raiders do it and were like, it works.
Or
Yep.
Las Vegas is just luring them away with tons and tons of money. I mean, Las Vegas
yeah.
is turning into a huge sports center now. I mean,
Yeah,
they've got the A's. They've got, what was the basketball team you said they had there?
They don't have a basketball team yet, but that is potentially
Or the
planned
Raiders.
for the next few years. But they got the Raiders, and then they also have the Las Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah,
they got a hockey team, so that really
Oh,
kind of
do they?
started it all off. Yeah,
Look at that.
I'm
They're
really
becoming the new
into
Bay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Look at that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't live there anymore, so what's it matter? I wasn't following them anyway. Good luck,
Yeah.
everyone in the Bay Area. Yeah.
Yeah, and good
Go
luck
drive
to
into the
Las
city.
Vegas,
Yeah.
where
Oh,
hockey
yeah.
shouldn't exist.
that's exactly
Yes.
right.
That's what we have.
Anything you guys want to plug before we get out of here?
Sure.
I do. Yeah.
Go for it.
I want to plug Simsational Gaming, which is a friend of mine's group of gaming buddies. I've mostly watched them on Facebook gaming, like that's where they've live stream a lot of their stuff. But they're up and coming channel, so I just want to send some of we have no viewers yet, but when we get them, I want them to go talk and check out Sensational Gaming. They're a really funny group of guys, and they make some interesting stuff, so go check them out.
Awesome. I wanted to plug our YouTube channel that will be up. It's at Athletics Check. We also have a TikTok at Athletics Check 101 for some short clips and whatever the younger generations are into nowadays on that TikTok.
Oh my God.
And I also want to plug that you can email us at athletics check101@gmail.com.
Hell yeah. Well done, fellas. Well, I think that about wraps it up. I think we did I learned a lot. Hopefully you guys did as well.
I learned a lot.
Before we wrap up, I have one request.
Uh-oh.
Let's do it.
You want me to plug
vibe check.
You want me to plug you?
Plug what you want to plug for sure. But I want to
plug
do
you.
Whoa. Come at me.
Oh yeah, good. Yeah, one more vibe check.
One more vibe check before we go.
Vibe check for who says the final send off. 9.
I rolled a 12.
I got a 7.
All right, Michael, you're sending us off, dog.
All right. This has been Tyler, Anthony, and Michael for Athletics Check. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure hosting and talking about D&D and sports. I hope you lovely people have a wonderful week, evening, morning, all that. And we'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.